بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. We're continuing here in the Risala حلية طالب العلم, the etiquettes of the seeker of knowledge by Shaykh Bakr Abu Zaid rahimahullah. And here in point 11 in chapter 1 the Shaykh says to avoid the gatherings of vain speech. الإعراض عن مجالس اللغو. And laghu is that type of speech which has no benefit in it, whether it be speech which harms others or it doesn't have any harm. As long as it doesn't have any benefit, then it's considered laghu. And a believer shouldn't be sitting in these type of gatherings because it doesn't befit him. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Allah describes the believers as those who stay away from the sittings of laghu, vain, idle speech. So the Shaykh says, do not stand on the carpet of those who carry out detestable acts at the places of gatherings and tear the veil of morality and pretending to be unaware of your actions. If you do, then your crime against knowledge and its people is a grave one. Means that Talib al-Ilm shouldn't be in the gatherings where this type of speech is prevalent because it doesn't befit him and his status. And of course we know that if somebody sits in these type of gatherings and haram things are being said, then he is sinful as well for not prohibiting it nor standing up and leaving it. As Allah reminds us in the Quran about those gatherings in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's verses are being mocked. The believers shouldn't sit in those gatherings, otherwise فَإِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ. Otherwise then you are like them. And someone cannot make the excuse that he or she is detesting it with the heart, because true detesting will also come with some type of action. You get up and leave if you cannot remind them to fear Allah, or if you're able to speak, you should speak. You say we shouldn't be speaking about things that have little or no benefit, or if it's haram, you say to stop the haram and not to speak and backbite, etc. Added to this, the Shaykh says you should avoid commotion, and he uses here the word al-hayshat, which is reminding us the believer shouldn't be someone involved in commotion and riotous behavior. And hayshat comes in the hadith in Muslim. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions when it comes to the adab of the masjid that إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ. Beware of the commotion of the markets when you're inside the masjid. Too much loud talking or yelling or shouting or things like this is going to create chaos in the masjid. So here the Shaykh says, protect yourself from indulging a riotous and clamorous behavior. For indeed, mistake lies behind clamor and it opposes the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge. Means if you're involved in commotion and chaos, a Talib al-Ilm is not one who's hasty, he's not one who is making corruption. Rather, he tries to rectify and reform. So then the Shaykh brings a story where in such an occurrence happened, and then at the end of the story, the Shaykh was able to solve the issue. But chaos and commotion shouldn't be our characteristics. We should always be deliberate. We always be people who are patient and be careful of what we do and say. And today with all the social media, it's easy to get into commotion, to get involved in fitan which doesn't involve you, or get involved in speech or discussion which has little to no benefit. And at the end you find yourself one who is at fault because of you getting involved in something which is not beneficial. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he told us, min husn islami mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'nihi. From the goodness of someone's Islam is to avoid that which has no concern for him. So if something is chaotic or it's fitna, you should avoid it at all times, especially if you have something of ilm, because then when you get involved, people will say, well, he's the one who is involved, who is making them things worse, not better. And the Shaykh then finishes the chapter with also adding with it, adorning yourself with gentleness, rifq. And he says, adhere to being gentle in speech, avoid harsh words, for gentle speech wins over hostile personalities. And the proofs for the Quran and Sunnah on this topic are abundant. Means rifq, there's so many adillah and evidences for it, and you cannot enumerate them all in just a short chapter. But when we take a benefit, we should always be lenient. Rifq wal leen. When speaking to people who are against you, or who have ignorance, or maybe they have adversary, someone who maybe he has an opinion, you don't agree with it, you want to advise them, always lenient, everything with leniency. And some of the mashayikh, they mentioned we're living in the time period of that. Shaykh Ibn Baz rahimahullah, he said, this time period we're living in is a time period of leniency. If you're harsh with people, they're not going to accept your message. But that doesn't deny that there is time for harshness. It's a balance. There is time to be rough and to be harsh, but it's in due place. And today we need to begin with leniency. Somebody he made a mistake in the prayer. Somebody he made a mistake in something. You advise them leniently. Don't yell at them as if they knew what's right versus wrong. And you start off assuming maybe they don't know any better. And if they did, then you ask them nicely, maybe you have an evidence I don't have for what you did. And this is important. You don't come with the approach that this person is absolutely ignorant at all times. Perhaps they know better than you. And they have an opinion which is stronger than yours when you discuss with them. But you are the one coming as if they are all wrong. Always be lenient. And the Shaykh mentions why. What's the hikmah behind that? Because gentle word speech wins over hostile personalities. If people are generally difficult to deal with, when you're lenient, it wins them. And this is the advice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He gave to Musa alayhi salam in dealing with Fir'aun. وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Speak to him a speech of leniency, so that he may remember or remember Allah or become pondering of Him and reflective. So always Talib Ilm should be lenient. And the Shaykh then adds another advice which is so important. This part is very important. He says contemplation. Be contemplative for whoever does so or reach their goal, and it was said, contemplate and you will reach. Therefore think ahead when you speak. What am I going to say? What will be the results of what I'm going to say? Also be careful of how you phrase what you're saying and convey what you want to say without going to any extremes or fancies. Carefully consider what words to use when you're thinking about how you're going to say whatever you will say. And also think carefully when you are asked a question, that you understand the question is correct context in a way, so as to not carry two meanings. And so this advice is very important. If you're going to pass someone a benefit or a fatwa or opinion that you've read, or you want to correct someone, be careful what you say and how you say it. Because sometimes you may say something and we're really saying it the wrong way, or we're saying something which is not what the Shaykh or the benefit we read was exactly saying. We said it in the wrong way. Sometimes you may say something and implicitly it could be understood to be making tabdi' or takfir because the wording wasn't clear. Or you said something and then later on someone took it from you and told someone else the wrong version of what you said and said, this is what I heard. So always you pay attention to the outcomes of your speech. And when someone asks a question, you ponder on what the question is before answering it. And if you don't know the golden principle, you say, La adri, Allahu a'lam, Allah knows best, I don't know. And that's why sometimes some questions may come or things to be asked, or somebody may have an issue. You don't need to answer it immediately. There is no time limit. You go and you research, you go and you ask. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. But because today we're living in an era when people's speech is recorded, and people are always listening, we need to be careful we don't say something in an extreme way or an incorrect way and later on say, I didn't mean it this way. Because you meant it, because you said it. And very important, because a lot of the problems come with these kind of phrases which are ambiguous or unclear, or somebody who is not making tafsil in a matter which has details. He just makes a general statement, it's all haram. Actually there's tafsil, he didn't make any differentiations, and later on fitna comes. So always be careful what you say, especially Talib Ilm, because people listen to their speech. And the last benefit here, firmness and confirmation. And the Shaykh is advising us to be firm. Al-thabat wa tathabbut. Be firm and have firmness and confirmation. Adorn yourself with firmness and confirmation, and especially in calamities and serious situations. And from it is patience and firmness upon acquiring and passing long hours and seeking knowledge from the scholars. For whoever is firm will grow. Very important point there to memorize. Man thabata nabata. Whoever is firm, they will grow. Man thabata nabata. Whoever is firm, then they will develop and grow. And what is intended by this? Shaykh Uthaymin, he says, rahimahullah, means firmness in relation to the seeking of knowledge and reading of books and going back to the correct resources. Firmness in returning to the mashayikh and those you sit with and you take knowledge from. Firmness in listening to them. And he advises the shaykh against what practices people do. 1 week with this shaykh, another week with that shaykh, they're everywhere. And then you find yourself, this is that kind of person, they don't learn. And this is important nowadays. We have this culture, people they sit everywhere and everywhere. And they like it because they think they will learn. But what the benefit is, if you sit in the right places and you're firm and you're deliberate, you will learn. But the one who goes around, He won't learn because he goes everywhere and he won't benefit directly from the sources and benefits because there's no patience behind it. At-ta'anni min Allah, deliberations from Allah. We need to be patient, sabr. And so here's a benefit. If you want to grow your knowledge, don't be everywhere. You don't have to be in every majlis. You stay in the majlis of the Shaykh who you've chosen, who is correct, and upon correct methodology, you stick to the text which you're supposed to. And the Shaykh teaches what to read and study next. And you be careful that you don't go around everywhere, because if that doesn't produce results. And so this is an important thing to remember. Man thabata nabata, whoever is firm, they will develop and grow. And if you find yourself being this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow you to develop and to prosper. The second chapter the Shaykh then gets into, which we'll just begin a bit of it. He talks about now فصل الثاني كيفية طلب والتلقي, the methodology of seeking knowledge and acquiring it. And this, alhamdulillah, has been covered before in other lessons with the brothers. But we will remind again the Shaykh's advice in how we should go about seeking knowledge. How do you do it? So he begins first the methodology of seeking knowledge and the maratib, the levels. He says whoever does not perfect the foundations is prevented from reaching their aim. Means the one who is not proficient in the usul, حرم الوصول, he will be prevented from reaching his goal. ومن رام العلم جملة ذهب عنه جملة. And whoever seeks knowledge all in one go, it disappears all in one go. And this is actually one of the narrations, one of the Salaf, Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah, that he said this: whoever tries to acquire all of knowledge in one go, then it will disappear all in one go. And so it's important we take knowledge step by step. It was also said that overcrowding the knowledge in the ears misguides one's understanding. It means taking more than you can absorb at one time, more lessons than you can handle. Then it's difficult, so you take it step by step. He said, therefore, it is essential to ground yourself in every subject you study or wish to study, but perfecting its basics and perfecting a concise book on every subject with the Shaykh, and not relying upon the personal efforts alone. And so here the Shaykh gives us the first advice, that we seek knowledge by first being concerned with the basics. You go to the basics, every science. You need to have, he's going to mention, one text in every basic, every science. And you perfect it, and you study with the Shaykh or the teacher. If one doesn't have that, then he refers back to the resources which are available, the audios of those mashayikh and those teachers, if he cannot find someone who can teach him it. And what he does then, he continues to learn in tahsil like this until he finishes that. And then to the next and to the next. And he says you take آخذا لطلب بالتدرج. Knowledge is learned by gradual progression. It's not a race, and it's also not something you do only once. You do it continuously, little by little bit. And to prove that, he mentioned, Allah says in the Quran, وَقُرْآنًا فَرَقْنَاهُ لِتَقْرَأَهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ عَلَى الْمُكْثِ وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ تَنزِيلًا. And it's the Quran which we have divided into parts in order you may recite it to the people in intervals. And we have revealed it in stages. So here the Quran is even revealed in stages. Take your time, one by one. And he also mentioned other ayat to prove the same point. Then he says, so in front of you there are a number of things that you have to consider in every subject you study. So he's going to give us 6 points to do if you want to become good in knowledge and to become beneficial. And this point is important because this is the usloob, this is the manner of obtaining knowledge. If someone who does it other than this way, it's possible he may learn. It's not impossible, but this is the way of someone who is a alim. So it's important when the scholars advise manners of learning, they know best about that manner. Why? For they are the ones who have the knowledge. To listen to them is to obtain the success. So here are the steps the Shaykh said you should be taking. Number 1, memorize a concise book on it. You begin with hifz, memorization of a concise book on the topic. This is important. Then, what are those concise books? He's going to give you the list. But you memorize it, because when you memorize, you will remember and you will benefit from it later. And some of the ulama, they mentioned that which they memorized lasted and benefited them more than that which they have read. For example, Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, who mentioned that we memorized less or not much compared to what we read, but what we memorized, we benefited more than what we read. For you may read and you forget and you lose, but when you memorize, it stays with you. So you memorize a concise book in each text, in each subject. Number 2, perfect it by studying under a proficient Shaykh. So you find a teacher, the Shaykh, or someone who can teach you, and you perfect it with them to make sure that you understood it the right way. And then number 3, do not engage yourself with long books. and compilations on many different subjects before perfecting the basics and becoming proficient. Means you don't go to the mutawwalat, the long books, and read them because you're still focused on the basics. By doing that, you're going to get yourself confused and you will lose. For the big books, they are very big. So you stay focused on the basics. Don't get engaged in larger books as of yet. Number 4, do not swap one book for another without any necessity for its impatience. So if you start one matan, you don't just put it away and get another one because you feel like reading that one, and then you put it away and get another one, because that's not patience. That's ajala, and also dajar. It's a laziness and impatience. So sometimes you see you begin this matan and then you feel, okay, maybe I heard about that matan. You start doing that matan and you didn't memorize any of them. And you started every one, but you memorized none of them. And so this is a problem sometimes, because with the social media and internet, everything is being uploaded and shared. You say, oh, I found another one and another one. So stick with the ones that you're supposed to be doing. It's very important. And this etiquette should also be for books as well, that if you start to read one book, finish it before you start another. The temptation is there to always read another, but the etiquette comes, the patience reading one till you finish. They mentioned about Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah in his biography, that one thing that he used to do, and he's one who was an avid reader, reading so much, that if he began a book, he wouldn't put it down till he finished. And we know when he reads those books, he's not reading the small ones, he's reading the big ones. So even books like the hadith books, one qissa mentioned he read the whole of Muslim Ahmed from beginning to the end in search of a hadith. But that's how the Shaykh was, he began, he finished. So for us, we should also train ourselves. I started this matan with this teacher in this class, I have to finish it now. I can't just put it down and move to another. Number 5, capture the benefits and precepts of knowledge by writing it down. Record the knowledge, the notes. Get your notebook, write down the benefits. Sometimes you come to the dars, you have the matan. Where's your notebook to write the sharh? Because if you're going to use your book, then you have to use the hawashi, the margins. That's fine. You could do this. You have a notebook separate. But you don't come without it, because what if the benefits you need to record? And you need to, because tomorrow you're going to benefit others with that book. So if you don't have the notes on the sharh, what are you going to do? You're going to teach it without nothing. So it's important. Seeking knowledge, always write the benefits. Qayyudu bil kitab. Secure knowledge by recording it. Number 6, mentally prepare yourself to seek knowledge and progress in it. Also be concerned with and be zealous in attaining and reaching what is above you, until you progress onto long compilations. In summary, be ambitious, be eager, prepare yourself to progress. So if you start in level 1, you're going to go to level 2. You have to have that ambition, because the knowledge is one that you want to progress. You don't want to be lazy and say, I'm going to be in level 1, I'm not ready for level 2, or I'm never preparing to go to level 2. And that's sometimes the problem that happens with some people. They begin and maybe they're on level 1 for too long, because they're not ready, nor they have confidence to go to another level. They want to move on. They say, I did this book maybe a few times. Okay, now you move to the next one. You're ready. But because of this lack of ambition, they stay on the level 1 and they keep doing this. And this is not how it should be done. For knowledge is much, and we have not much time. And so the key benefit as well, you try to learn a book in a way that you don't have to return to it again, means you don't have to relearn it. And this advice, some of the mashayikh give it, that if you read a book and you study it one time. Means in a good way, complete, so that you don't have to return to the book except to review. Means you're not going to relearn it, you finish the book. And I believe this was the advice Shaykh Saeed Aasi gave, rahimahullah, in the book when we read through the methodology of seeking knowledge. You study it once to cover it, so your notes, everything's meticulous. You don't want to go back. You finish this one. But if you read it like as if we're going to go back to it anyways, so I'm going to do it 3-4 times, the first time, what are you going to benefit from? Or some people, what they do is that they'll say, I'm going to just listen, because I'm going to just sit, I'll listen to the recording. What's the likelihood you're going to sit and listen to the recording if you were in the majlis? If you were here in the majlis live, are you going to re-listen to the recording? No, you came for a reason, listen and benefit in the majlis, so later on the recording is a backup. Now the Shaykh says, now he's teaching us, and we'll finish with this part, where do we go from here? What do we start learning? He says it's the opinion of Ibn Al-Arabi, Al-Maliki, rahimahullah, that the seeker should not mix between 2 subjects when studying, and priority should be given to learning Arabic, poetry, mathematics, then you go to the Quran. But this opinion was rebuked by Ibn Khaldun, rahimahullah, who said that then, at the present day, the customs do not encourage this method. The first priority should be given to studying the Quran and memorizing it, because as long as the child remains in the lap of his father and mother, he is easily controlled, but once he passes the age of adolescence, it becomes difficult to force him to do anything. So the scholars, they differ in terms of where do you begin. And every scholar, every time period had their way. So he mentioned Ibn al-Arabi mentioning math, Arabic, grammar, and poetry, then Quran. Where others, they say no, Quran first, and then you go to the other sciences. And our ulama also advise that there is some tafsir, and every scholar has his different opinion on this. They proceed between the Quran, yes, but also the Aqeedah and the Usul al-Din. You need to know your basics. So there's one opinion, Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah was asked about someone beginning seeking knowledge around 18 years of age. Means they're old now compared to when people begin. How do they go about doing it? He says, well, it matters now if the person knows the basics. If they covered the Aqeedah that's wajib and what they should know, in that case they can choose the Quran to memorize entirely or stick to the ulum shar'iyyah. But before that, they need to fix that. Because Allah knows what will happen to us if we pass away. We can pass away anytime. We want to make sure our beliefs are correct. And then, if someone has at least the basics, he can then make his full effort in the Quran. And some ulama mention the Quran first, because it teaches you ilm. Quran is asl ilm. It also teaches you adab, and teaches discipline, all of this. So no doubt someone he can combine between it. But we also need to remember, because many of us will begin while we're older, at least read the books of Aqeedah to know the basic Tawheed. You don't want your belief to be so empty. And sometimes we find that when we were younger, we memorized some of the Quran, but we didn't know Allah. So what did it benefit us when we memorized until later? So this is the advice. Of course, the Shaykh will also mention, and we'll do it next week, what books do you go for each subject one by one. So it's advisable, inshaAllah, that we try to take those down. Inshallah, we'll end with this much due to the time. But if anyone has any questions or points they want to add, or طيب إن شاء الله سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.